All right, guys, welcome back to the Green Zone. After the long-awaited off-season wait, we are back. This is Week 1, 2019. We'll call it Episode 1.5 of the 2019 NFL season. Billy here behind me is with me, and he was in Episode 1 of this year as well. So if you want to find that, it's on my YouTube channel, Jimmy Havener, and also on the Podbean, The Green Zone, all one word. You can find us there. We gave our predictions for each division, your conference wild cards, and our Super Bowl predictions as well. So feel free to check that out. We'll technically call this episode 1.5. We'll finish off our betting segment, and I'll give you fantasy predictions as well. So here we go. First off is the Pick'em, guys. If you're not familiar with the podcast yet, where have you been? Join the Green Thumb Army. I'm here to make you some money. This is going to be straight up head-to-head winners with a little bit of betting segment to follow up. Hold on 1 minute here. I have to cue the music. Our music guy is really slacking. Okay, guys, here we go. All right, I'm going to take you head-to-head here. First, we have Cleveland Browns versus the Tennessee Titans. Billy, that's the Chinese food. Do you want to get that? Here you go. Here's my card. Oh, and every team has to get used to the new season, guys. So ignore that. First, we have the Cleveland Browns versus the Tennessee Titans. I am taking the Cleveland Browns over those pesky Titans. That's right. The new and upcoming Cleveland Browns take this one. It'll be a close game. I think the Titans are a team that can hang in there with the Browns, but ultimately the Browns get it done. Finally, we have Baltimore at the Miami Dolphins. Guys, I've got Baltimore winning this one easily. The Dolphins do not look like an NFL team to me this year. We spoke about it earlier on episode 1 of this year. The 2019 Dolphins may be Philadelphia's trust the process team. They are not here to win. They're here to lose and get that first round draft pick. So Baltimore easy in that one. Next up is the Vikings versus the Falcons. I've got the Vikings winning this game, guys. I like both of these teams, but ultimately I'm very high on the Vikings this year, and they're a more balanced team. I think they get it done. I think that defense is a little bit too much for the Falcons there, and they put up more points than they need to get the W. Finally, we have the Jets versus Buffalo. Division game, guys. Last year, if you don't remember, these teams split, so it's not as easy as you think. Buffalo's not as bad against the Jets as one would think. They've given them a good battle each time. The first time these teams played, they combined for 38 points. The second time, they combined for 59. So there's going to be a little bit of high-scoring affair here, more than people think. However, since it is Week 1 and there's some rust to shake and some young teams, I do think it'll be on the lower end. We'll see. We'll go over that when we get to the over-unders in the betting segment. Bottom line, Jets beat Buffalo. Next, we've got Eagles at Washington, guys. I think the Eagles take this one easily, mostly due to the fact that Washington's not a very good football team, and I don't think they're going to do much of winning this year. We'll follow that up with Rams versus the Panthers. This is an interesting game. I have the Rams winning this game, but be careful, guys. I would not be surprised if the Panthers sneak out a win there in Carolina. It's going to be humid. It's going to be hot. It's going to be sticky. And it's going to be just how Cam Newton likes it. So watch out there, Los Angeles. This could be a sneaky L for you, but I do think they're the better team. Next, we've got the Chiefs at the Jaguars. I think the Chiefs win this game. No problem. Or maybe there is. I don't know, guys. This will be a tough one, but I like the Chiefs with that offense just scoring enough to beat that Jaguars team and that defense. However, should be a good game. And we have the Chargers and the Colts, guys, especially with everything that's happened with Andrew Luck. I like the Chargers winning this game. A little bit too much pressure on Jacoby Brissett there. Phillip Rivers and the Chargers get it done against the Colts. Seahawks at Bengals, guys. You'll hear me talk about this game a few times this week. I love it. It's mouth-watering for me. The Bengals are one of the worst teams in the NFL, if not the worst team. I've said that a few times. You'll hear me say it a few more. I like the Seahawks this year. They know what they're doing. They know who they are. They have an identity, and I expect them to win a lot of games because of it. In Seattle versus one of the worst teams in the NFL, I like the Seahawks. Then we've got Dallas at the Giants, guys. Another division game, but I've got the Dallas Cowboys coming out on top of this one. The Giants, it's a little long in the tooth at quarterback, of course, but the Cowboys look good this year. So Cowboys winning that one. Detroit versus Arizona, guys. I have Detroit going into Arizona and beating them. I think the Cardinals have a lot to work on. The Lions, even though I have them last in that division, I think they'll do some things this year. They'll get some W's. I think that there's no defense in Arizona that's going to be able to stop the offense that the Lions have to offer. So expect a lot from Kerryon Johnson. Expect a lot from Kenny Golladay. Next, guys, we've got Tampa Bay versus the San Francisco 49ers. I have Tampa Bay winning this one. San Francisco is going into the humid weather of Tampa. It's on the East Coast. It's a tough way to start a season. I normally like teams at home for their home openers in the NFL especially. I just think Tampa has too much. The Niners secondary is questionable at best. They didn't do anything to fix their issues from last year other than bolster up that defensive line. That doesn't fix all your secondary issues. So Tampa Bay airs it out and beats the Niners in that one. Next, we've got New England versus Pittsburgh. I've got the New England Patriots winning that one. The Steelers lost a few weapons. They got some youngsters up and coming, so they'll be able to shoot out with the best of them. But ultimately, I think the Patriots and their defense shut it down and get the W over the Steelers. Finally, we have the Saints versus Houston. Saints, I like in a home opener against an opponent who's good, but not good enough. I think the Saints beat the Texans in that one. And then last but definitely least, we've got the Broncos versus the Oakland Raiders. I got the Broncos winning this one, guys. It's going to be too much pressure. I love that defensive line. That front seven for the Denver Broncos is going to be tough for Derek Carr and that questionable offensive line to beat. I expect Carr to be on his back all day and Denver to win this one through their defense. So that does it through the pick'ems, guys. Remember, that does not include any of the spreads. Those are just straight head-to-head winners, all right? So that moves us on to what would usually be the the betting portion of this podcast. We're going to actually skip, however, to the fantasy stardoms. We've got Billy here, who I consider our fantasy expert, so he's going to help guide us through this. That's right. And yeah, we'll start with quarterbacks. And guys, for the fantasy advice that I give, we're definitely talking about daily fantasy, okay? So there's always going to be your year-long fantasy. You've got your guys, your first-round draft picks, second, third, even fourth-round draft picks that you're probably going to want to start on a weekly basis. There's a reason you drafted them that high. As it gets later in the season, maybe you get some free agent wire or waiver ads that makes a difference there. But Week 1, you're probably going to want to start your top tier guys. What I'm trying to tell you is daily fantasy, this is all about matchups, or mostly about matchups. There are your studs week to week, but we're going to give you some good matchup value here. Some good daily fantasy value so that guys that you can get maybe for a lower price so that you can stack that team, okay? So that's what we're going for. So keeping that in mind for quarterbacks, I'm going to give you 3 in each category. I've got Jameis Winston versus the 49ers, all right? This is expected to be, Vegas has this as the highest scoring total of each game this week. I'm not sure if it'll be 52 points, but I do believe in a lot of offensive points and production will be had in this game. I like Jameis Winston to have a lot of it. Like I said, guys, I'm going to be taking quarterbacks going against this 49ers secondary all year. I like Bosa. I like Dee Ford. I like DeForest Buckner. Those are linemen. We don't have any secondary in San Francisco. Our best secondary, member is Richard Sherman, and he's a couple years past his expiration date. He's crafty, and he'll get people covered, but who's covering Mike Evans? Nobody, guys. That's the answer to that one. So I expect Jameis to connect with him quite often. Next, I've got Carson Wentz versus the Redskins. I think this is a big prove-it year for the Eagles, Doug Peterson, and Carson Wentz. There's a lot of eyes on them, judging them, seeing which way they're going to rule as far as which way the jury will rule on them. So I expect big things, and to top it off, it's a soft opponent right out the gates. The Washington Redskins lost their quarterback. They have a decent defense that's slightly underrated because they're not a team that anyone really keeps eyes on. But I like Carson Wentz, and I like the Eagles, and I like all the weapons that Carson has. Zach Ertz, J.J. Nelson, Alshon Jeffrey, a few backs out of the backfield. So I like Carson Wentz this week. And finally, rounding out my quarterbacks that you can get for the low price of out of the top 10, I believe, last I checked on FanDuel, is Lamar Jackson versus the Miami Dolphins. Now, this is purely matchup, guys. I'm not really sure how I feel about Lamar Jackson just as an NFL quarterback, but this week against the Miami Dolphins, I like all and everything Lamar Jackson. Start him and start him as much as you can. I think he's going to have just as much production on the ground as he does through the air. I think he gets in the end zone, both. I think he gets in on the ground. I think he gets in the air at least once. So, especially in daily fantasy, or in any fantasy league where you get more points for a rushing touchdown than a passing one, Lamar is somebody that you want to look at. Bill, we'll send it over to you so the listeners, the beautiful listeners, don't have to hear me ramble all day. What do you have by way of quarterback, your top 3?
All right, so for my picks, we're going FanDuel pricing. And I also want to start this up.
I won't bite. Yeah, there it is.
There's a cord.
Yeah.
I also want to start this off by saying that in FanDuel, I play cash games, which is 50-50 leagues. So we're going to try to beat 50% of the competition. If you are just getting into fantasy and you are signing up for the $1 million grand prize or one of those promotions that they're sending out like crazy, then you're going to want to be more contrarian than this. But for me, I picked top, middle, and lower end player as far as their current salary. So for the top end, we're going Baker. Baker Mayfield is going to go deep, and he's going to go deep often. That's how you beat the Titans. So you don't run it on them. You go over the top. They have bad secondary. They have slow corners. So he's going to go deep. I think he's going to connect with Odell Beckham Jr. at least once. I know there are some concerns with ODB or OBJ, whatever initials you want to use for him. With his hip and something to do with a race car, not having his alignment. But I think he's going to be fine. He's going to play. It's first day on the Browns. I'm going Baker Mayfield on top end. A little bit lower. I think you already mentioned this one. Jameis Winston against the Niners is a no-brainer. They're going to tear apart the Niners defense. Bruce Arians' first game at home. It's going to be good. And at FanDuel, they don't penalize you too much for interceptions there. If you want to go on the low end, I'm going Jacoby Brissett. He is $6,000. So when we're doing these cash games, we're trying to get 2.5 times their value. So if you look at $6,000, he's got to only get you about 18 points to pay off, and that should be pretty easy. As long as he's getting about 200 yards, gets you a couple of touchdowns, he's going to be good to go. He also will run the ball. I know Jacoby Brissett was a little sloppy last time he was out there, but don't forget he was on the team for one day, I think, before the season started. So I have high hopes for Jacoby as far as a fantasy asset. Might not result in wins, but I do like him this first week out of the gate at men's salary quarterback.
All right. Well, that does it for our quarterbacks. We will go ahead and move on to running backs, guys. So right out the gates, I like Alvin Kamara. I'm not high on the Texans' front seven when it comes to stopping the run. Now, they can get after the quarterback, and we've known that they can they've shown that for the last few years, led by the swinging axe man himself, J.J. Watt. But stopping the run, I think they're questionable, and I think they're adverse to it. So the Saints are going to feed Kamara, and they're going to feed him often. Especially week 1, I expect Sean Payton to have some plays specifically drawn up for Alvin Kamara. So I like him there. He's a stud, guys. You could probably plug him in often, but I think he's worth the cash in daily fantasy. Next, I've got Chris Carson. This is a guy who a lot of people aren't talking about, and I don't think he's getting his just due. I know I was able to snag him late in a draft in the fantasy leagues that I'm in. I really like him, guys. I think he's going to be the number 1 running back for the Seattle Seahawks, and I think they've really established that they're a running team. They're a run-first team. Let Russell Wilson make some plays on the back end, play some good defense to secure that lead, and let the clock run itself out. Keep the ball in their own hands and control the clock. So Chris Carson I think he's going to get fed, and he's going to get fed often. I think the guy's talented. He makes most of his yards after first contact. He's tough. I like him. And next I've got Mark Ingram versus the Dolphins. Like I said, I like that matchup for the Ravens versus the Dolphins, and Mark Ingram, I think, is a good addition for them. He's a reliable, sturdy back that they can give the ball to. I think Harbaugh loves that idea of just a number 1 back, and he just maybe hasn't been able to find one as durable as he likes. They'll spell Ingram for sure, but I think he's going to get enough to get you that fantasy point production that you need. And then last, this is a fourth bonus that I'm throwing in there for you guys. I've got Matt Breida, and the reason I've got Breida is that it's early in the season. The guy's got wheels, and he's got a fairly decent amount of vision. He plays in a system where there's going to be a lot of big holes for him to take that speed right through. And what I mean by that is Shanahan's system is built for him to be productive within. And so right now, he's listed as the 49ers' number 1 running back, all right? A lot of people thought it was going to be Tevin Coleman, but for now, it's Matt Breida. So Breida is going to get the bulk of the carries. There will be a committee issue there, but I think that he probably has a couple home run hits. I think he stays healthy at least through this first game. Later on in the season, we're not even going to go there. But for now, I think you could take a gamble on Matt Breida. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, this is your show. Am I allowed to challenge you?
Say, it's the people's show. You could challenge me, but more importantly, you need to say your guys.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yes.
I'm going to say no to Matt Breida. I think he is over.
Well, I say no to Jacoby
Coleman
Brissett.
because B becomes before C, and that's about it. Coleman's going to lead that back. I like Coleman this week. I do not like Breida, but I do like Coleman this week. I think Coleman's going to be the guy.
Okay.
It's going to be a split. It's going to be 50-50. I actually think it'll be more 60-40 on Coleman's favor, but Coleman showed when he was with Kyle Shanahan last time that 40% was more than enough when Freeman was taking the bulk of it. So I'm more of a Coleman guy. But my big three, first one does agree with you. So we can be all kumbaya on this one. Chris Carson.
Oh, there you go.
Chris Carson versus the Bengals. That's going to be chalky. So if you're playing cash games, chalk is good. That he'll probably be 60 to 70% owned because it's just such an obvious play. But yeah, Chris Carson. If you're playing cash games, you got to get him into your lineup. Next up, I got Delvin Cook playing against the Falcons. I believe. Yeah, playing against the Falcons. Falcons always season after season. It is a trend. They give out catches to running back. So not only is he going to get it done on the ground, he's going to catch up to 10 catches as well. He is going to be a beast. I am guessing he will probably be the top running back actually of the week, even over the big names that I left off this list for salary purposes. And number 3, I love Kerryon Johnson. If you don't want to go with the main two, which is Chris Carson and Delvin Cook, get Kerryon in there. He's going to get a lot of action today. I'm really high on Kerryon. And I've been pivoting to him a little bit just to get a little bit of difference off the Delvin Cook and Chris Carson chalk for the week.
All right. So there you have it, guys. We'll see what turns out with that Niners game and how that boils down or whatnot. All right, guys. Now we're moving on to wide receivers. Again, I've got another Tampa Bay Buccaneer. If Jameis Winston is going off, then he's going to have to be going off with one of his receivers or even a tight end. But in this one, I like Mike Evans. There is nobody that's going to guard Mike Evans on the 49ers side. I like him getting in the end zone at least once, probably over 100 yards as well. For number 2 here, I've got Kenny Golladay, guys. The Cardinals were ranked, it was either dead last or second to last in points given up to receivers last year in fantasy. Kenny Golladay is the main target, the number 1 guy as far as wide receivers go in Detroit. I like him getting fed often. I know the Lions want to run it, and they will, and I think they'll run it effectively. But they would be a little foolish to not take advantage of what the Cardinals give up through the air there, and take advantage of that with Kenny and his massive body. Then we've got Juju Smith-Schuster going against the Patriots, guys. I know the Patriots and Bill, he has good defensive schemes, and he's able to shut people down, but I just think sheer volume-wise, Juju is going to get it a lot. He's going to get it often. He will see double coverage. Most of the time, Belichick forces you to beat them with your second weapon, not your first. But I think Juju still gets force-fed a little bit here and puts up decent numbers. Go ahead on your receivers, Bill.
All right, I am also going to go with a Jameis Winston receiver, but not Mike Evans. I am going to save some money, and I'm going down to Chris Godwin. Mike Evans is sick at the moment. He is expected to play.
Yeah, he's
I'm going to go Chris Godwin. All day, every day. Godwin is going to get into the end zone this week. I am going to take him over Mike Evans and save some money for the next position so we can pay up on the next position, which we'll talk about soon. On the top end, I am going Odell Beckham Jr. We talked about it already. That will be a little pairing there with Baker Mayfield. Odell Beckham is going to go deep at least once on the tight ends. I think he's fine to start running. I know his hip has some kind of issue, but he is a diva, and he's going to want to perform his first day out. On the Browns, so I am going Odell Beckham with Baker Mayfield for that pairing there. I'm not calling it a stack, but I'm going to call it pairing there. And then finally, Mike Williams, big Mike Williams, BMW, is going to get in the end zone for the Chargers. So nice mid-price player right there. Mike Williams for the Chargers is my third receiver.
All right. Some good value there for sure. All right, moving on to tight ends. Guys, I've got George Kittle in here. With tight ends, there's a bit of a fall off. If you play fantasy at all, you've probably already noticed it. After the top 4, there's a pretty big fall off in tight ends. So I'm trying to give you a little value, but at the same time, I want you to get a little something. So we got George Kittle. Obviously, everybody's touted him very high this year. I think the Bucs will try to focus on him and will try to stop him, especially in week 1. But I think Jimmy G has familiarity with George, and he gets him a little bit of that ball this week. He probably gets in a touchdown there, at least one. I think he'll probably get one there. Then you've got Hunter Henry. I liked Hunter Henry for a few years now, or a couple years. However, health has been the issue. Health is not the issue this year, at least for now. And I think he can have some production there with Phillip Rivers. And a little bit more target-heavy product this year. And then finally, Evan Ingram. Guys, the Giants really just don't have that many targets on offense, so I think it's just inevitable that he gets his fair share. So George Kittle, Hunter Henry, and Evan Ingram. Go ahead.
I'm going to go with Travis Kelce. And I'm going to go Travis Kelce again. If you go with any of my first picks for the other positions, then you could fit him into your lineup easily. This is a very easy week with the budgets. You can basically pick whatever players you want. So I am plugging in Travis Kelce first and foremost because I think the tight end position is the hardest out of the gate. Tight end position has a lot to do with the defense, the safeties, how they cover them, and we don't know that yet. So why not just go with the best tight end in the game? And historically, Jacksonville gives up production to the tight end, especially Travis Kelce. That is the weakness of the defense. Now, I just said I don't like to go historically, but I'm also then going to go on the other side. Let's just go with the best tight end. So I'm going Travis Kelce against Jacksonville, and I'm going to work the rest of my lineup around that. So I'm not going to give it 2 or 3 because I'm saying start with Travis Kelce.
There you go. Slot him in. Lock him. Travis Kelce. All right, guys, and then for defense, I'll give you 3 here, and we've got the Ravens. I think no-brainer there, Ravens versus Dolphins. There's going to be a few turnovers there. Seattle versus the Bengals. In Seattle, it's going to be really tough for Dalton and the Bengals. And then finally, the Chargers. I like the Chargers against the Colts in that matchup.
2 of ours are the same. I am also going Ravens. I am also going Seattle. The only one we're going to differ on is you go Chargers. I'm going Dallas.
Good matchup there as well, and a good defense in Dallas. All right, guys, those are our fantasy stardoms. Last year, I gave you guys some sit-em options. I'm not going to do that this year. You can go ahead and figure that out yourself. This is daily fantasy mostly, so you're worried and mostly concerned about your starters. There are no sitters. So that leads us to the betting segment. Let's get a little music in here to set the mood for our money-winning appetite. All right. Okay, guys, we're going to be hustling all the way to the top this year. I've got week 1 bets. As usual, I'm going to give you my first looks, then I'll give you my second takes, and then finally my third glances. That is in order of how confident I am about them. First looks are bets that just jumped off the page at me, things that I think you should absolutely bet. Second take are those that I had to go through a second time and say, hey, what do we got here? What can we really dig into? And then third glance is, not a lot of confidence in those ones, but if you're looking for some options, here they are. Now, I always like to preface this. Week 1 of the NFL is pretty crazy. It's difficult to bet and handicap week 1 of the NFL. Even Vegas has a tough time with it, guys. So be careful. Be a little bit more frugal with your money this week. We'll get more into diagnosing and dissecting the teams and how to bet them as the season goes on. So just be a little bit more, don't be so risque with your cash this early. But first look, I've got the Seahawks minus 9.5 against the Bengals. I don't think the Bengals even have a shot at keeping this one close. I think that the Seahawks and that home environment and that field and everything else that goes and is involved with that, it's just too much for the Bengals, and I like the Seahawks running all over them. Next, I've got the Bills and Jets. We're going to take the over at 41. Now, I would have liked this better if the over line moved down to 39 or even 38. 37 would be fantastic. But like I mentioned earlier, guys, the 2 games that the Bills and Jets played last year, they combined for 38 points and then 59 in their second meeting. So even though it is week 1, a lot of teams kind of are like boxers just feeling each other out, right? And have a little bit of rust to shake. I always like betting the over. It's more fun to cheer for as opposed to, hoping teams don't score. So I like the over in this one at it's at 41. And then finally, guys, I'm going to give you a trifecta. Now, these are 3 teams to just bet on to win. No spread, just straight up. Your trifecta, take the Seahawks, take the Eagles, and take Baltimore. Now, in that third one, if you want to throw a different team in here, you can also take the Chargers over the Colts. But Seahawks, Eagles, and Baltimore are 3 teams that I really like to just win in straight up, no spread action. Second take, guys, I got the Bucks -1 against the San Francisco 49ers. This is a little tongue-in-cheek here. I like betting against my favorite team because, hey, then if they lose, I got something to be happy about, right? But I just don't see the Niners traveling across country, starting up in Tampa, and outscoring the Bucks and winning there. If they do it, good for them, but I don't know. I see the Bucks taking advantage of that secondary too much. Then we've got the 49ers and the Bucks. I like the under in that one. The line is set at 51 points. I can't remember the last time the Niners were involved in a game where there were 51 total points scored. I know this is the highest game of the year, or highest total of the week. I know there will be some fantasy production out there that there's a lot of points that will be scored. But 51, that's a high total. The Niners are kings of the field goal. So I don't know if they're going to hold up their end of the bargain there. And we've got the Chiefs -3.5, guys. I think this will be a close game, but I just think the Chiefs have too much for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So -3.5, it's not that big of a spread to cover. I'd like it better if it was -3, but we're going Chiefs -3.5. And then finally, guys, we got third glance. Broncos -2.5 against the Raiders. I like this one more and more after we find out everything about AB not being there and them having to play against that Broncos team, that Broncos defensive line without really that many weapons to go to. So -2.5 Broncos. Then I've got Then I've got the Titans +6 over the Browns. Although I think the Browns will win this game, I like 6 points for the Titans. I think this could be a closer game than people think. I think Vrabel's a good coach. I think the Titans keep it close, and I think 6 is a good amount of points to take. I'll take the Titans +6. And then finally, we've got the Chargers -6.5 against the Colts. I think the Colts could be in a big heap of trouble this year. So Chargers, I think, are a playoff-bound team, and -6.5. It's a lot, but I think they can beat the Colts by a touchdown there. That is it and wraps it up for our money-making segment. So, say goodbye to the beautiful fans and beautiful listeners, Bill.
Bye, fans.
All right, that is week 1. Thank you for listening, you beautiful, beautiful listeners.